Good morrow, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Fantasy Folk, where we discuss all things in the fantasy genre, from books and games to television and film. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me as my traveling companion down these fantastical roads is Ron. How are you today, Ron?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to just dive right in with you here because we got a very exciting episodes of Rings of Power to talk about today.
Yes, episode 7 already of season 2. It was titled Doomed to Die, directed by Charlotte Brandstorm, written by J.D. Payne, Patrick McKay, and Justin Dauble. And it premiered September 26, 2024 on Amazon Prime Video. Let's just get into it. Right off the bat here, this was a big episode. Of course, Doomed to Die is the reference to Nine Rings to mortal men doomed to die. So that's where you're getting that from. But just give me your initial thoughts. I did not listen. You can plug this too. I did not listen to it yet because I wanted to have our conversation first. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to start with the same joke that I started that show with. So I give the episode 2 thumbs up, which is something that Celebrimbor unfortunately cannot do at the moment. But yeah, so as you mentioned, yesterday I had a really cool chance to hop on Agents of Fandom with some really great folks, TJ and Zen, and we were, just kind of chopping it up, all things about this episode. So go check that out. We will drop a link in the description down below. Agents of Fandom are great. I'm sure anybody who's listening to this show already knows their brand. They cover basically everything in the sort of nerdy sphere here that we all love so much. So it was a lot of fun. And go check that episode out once you've listened to ours. I'll try not to be too redundant here. But yeah, I really enjoyed the episode. I thought it was the best one so far. I think the only one that really compares to it is episode 6 from last season, with the sort of founding of Mordor and all that stuff. I think this episode did a really great job of feeling complete and like its own thing. Like the comparison that I made on the other show was that it felt like almost its own condensed Lord of the Rings movie. Whereas even if you hadn't been watching Rings of Power, if you came into this episode with maybe a little bit of background information and were a fan of Lord of the Rings, I think you could just enjoy this episode a hell of a lot for what it was. It gave you the drama, the action, the stakes. Like, it felt big and it felt important and grandiose. And it was just really great. So yeah, big fan of the episode for sure.
Yeah, it kind of felt like you said, a movie. I would also say it just felt like those episodes of Game of Thrones where those characters are starting to interact, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, the big battle's coming,"
Mm-hmm.
Um, and focusing on opening right off here with Celebrimbor, and who is almost done creating the Nine Rings at this point, right? There's just like little touches that are left to do. But he starts noticing that time is actually not moving, right? The mouse arriving every, like a clock, right? And then him getting the smart idea to mark the candle
Mm-hmm.
and noticing it's not actually burning down, right? This is all part of the illusion from Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that they had Celebrimbor do this and actually figure it out instead of Sauron just unmasking himself, being like, fooled you. Like, he was able to put the pieces together and he was able to kind of redeem himself, even though I've been Team Celebrimbor, but like redeeming himself. The most frustrating part, right, is that nobody believes him,
Yeah.
right? But then we have the Galadriel part where she does vouch for him, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it felt vindicating because of how much he has been gaslit by Sauron. And just the way that they played that whole Celebrimbor stuff out, I really liked it. It's been the strongest part of the show, I think, in this season, has been the Celebrimbor and Eregion Anatar stuff. And this part of it kind of starting to finally make on those promises that we know is going to happen just from knowing the source material, and it's playing out just very well in my opinion. It's just been absolutely loving that. I love when he accidentally kills what
Murdonia or
Myrdan,
yeah,
even though Sauron, like, using his magic to make him think he killed her type thing, and everybody's watching him and it's turning them against him. Like, it's just the chess game that Sauron is playing really came to a head in this episode, and I just loved seeing all of that bubbling up.
agreed. It's a good way to put it, actually, a chess match, because it really was like Celebrimbor figures it out, and then he's got to figure out, okay, how am I gonna like shift this? And it even feels like he was one step ahead with the like showing Celebrimbor the wound that he like drained his blood into the little
Yeah,
jar that was
it
supposed to have
wasn't actually Mithril,
mithril.
right? Like,
Yeah.
it was the blood of Sauron.
hmm But then, so what he does is he sort of leads Celebrimbor to believe that, like, hey, it'll be easy if you just show, tell people to look at my wrist. Meanwhile, he's one step ahead the whole time. He holds it up, and it's actually just looks like regular blood, because Celebrimbor was like, if you don't believe me, cut him open and look at his black blood, and he was like, nope, actually red, sort of thing.
Yep.
So it was very much so a chess match of them two going back and forth. And we even saw kind of one of the classic gaslighter tropes from Anatar in this episode. Because what happens when you have a gaslighter in your life and they finally find out, or you finally find out, beyond all shadow of a doubt, that they are lying to you, that you are not crazy, despite how much they would like to make you think the opposite. When you finally find that out and you confront them on it, they get angry, they lash out, they get defensive, and that's really what we saw a lot of from him in this episode, that being Anatar. But then the way he flips it again and is right back to that calm, cool, collected, like, okay, yeah, I'll play this out with you if you want to play it out, sort of thing. So yeah, a chess match, I think, was a really good way to put it.
Yeah, just Celebrimbor not as good at chess,
Yeah.
right? As forging stuff, because like you said with the blood stuff, I just knew when Sauron held that up it was going to be red.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, obviously he made you think this place looked great, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be able to trick them too.
Yeah.
And yeah, he wasn't really thinking with that, but he's probably delirious. He
Mhm.
probably has been up working on these rings the whole time, and
Mhm.
just had his mind exploded by the possibility of Eregion falling,
Mhm.
a city that he helped build, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's got to
So,
be a very bittersweet thing.
yeah, hopefully he has insurance
Yeah. Right.
on it. Though I don't think he'll be the one putting in the claim next week.
No. No. Unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think we talked about last week or maybe 2 weeks ago of like when we were looking at the source material of him torturing Celebrimbor and
Mhm.
asking where the rings are, and you'd kind of thought they're not going to do that because he knows where they are. But they
Mhm.
do a nice unique twist on this where he does get
Yes.
those 9 rings out and hands them to Galadriel to to smuggle out of Eregion, and it does lead to Sauron being like, "Where are the rings? Where are the rings?" And I was like, "Oh, this is how they're going to adapt that part." And I just thought that
Mhm.
was a fun little twist on that.
Yeah. The way that turns too at the end when Celebrimbor and all of the elven soldiers go up to like confront him, and he's just like, "All right," and just like basically forces
Oh
them
yeah,
all to like stab each other in a circle. It's like, oh god, so cool. And I imagine a
yeah,
similar fate next week for our buddy Celebrimbor.
yeah, yeah. Not great. I mean, like, most of the war is done, so I do wonder, right? Like, what they're gonna do here if he does, if they are gonna focus on him torturing him, and then maybe he will get the arrows from either Sauron or Adar still, now that they've beat the elves,
Mhm.
right? Now going to attack him, and like, him kind of holding Celebrimbor out on a flag. Like, remember how we
Yeah.
said that? Like, they hold him up, and yeah, it might be pretty rough for old Celebrimbor. And I just want
Yeah.
to give props to the actor Charles Edwards.
Mhm.
He is so good in this role, and I've just really enjoyed him as Celebrimbor. I think he brings a really great like touch of humanity to the role,
Mhm.
which is funny because he's an elf, but you know, just something that you can relate to. You know,
Yeah, yeah. We see a lot of that in this show, even with the orcs, the way that they've kind of started to humanize
yeah.
them. That was another big spotlight of this episode in terms of, they're kind of finally starting to maybe question Adar a little bit. All he does is talk about how they're his children and, he's doing all of this to protect them. Meanwhile, he's sending them out on the battlefield like cannon fodder without a second thought. And we see, I forget what the actual orc's name is, but it's the one with the family that we've been kind
I
of
think it's Glug.
Glug, yes, yeah, that we've just been kind of like loosely here and there following along with this season. So to see that start to come to a head is cool. I don't think we'll see that culminate this season. That'll probably be a season 3 thing. But yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, not just sending them out to die, right? But he gets a little Adar gets a little bit of pushback
yeah,
when he sends out Damrod, the
mm-hmm,
troll,
yep.
right? Because he's like, well, he's gonna kill some of the orcs too. He's like, I don't care. Like, we gotta
Wow.
get right. Like, we need to get this win,
Yep.
you know.
Mm-hmm,
And you can see Glug is kind of like, oh, don't know about that.
mm-hmm,
And you do see the tide turning, and we were wondering before at the beginning of the season, how will Sauron maybe be able to reclaim them,
mm-hmm,
right? The orcs,
mm-hmm,
because originally Adar positioned himself as father of the orcs, right? And that he loves them and stuff, and he was supposed to protect them against Sauron. That's how we kind of opened up the season 2 when he kills Sauron
mm-hmm.
and goes about their way. And we've been saying the season 1 conversation that Sauron as Halbrand had with Galadriel about, give them what they want, like, their weakness, and kind of give them a way to defeat that. I could see him doing something like that with playing into that. Like, they're already getting a little disillusioned. Some of the orcs are not, right? Some of the orcs were
Yeah.
obviously like, yeah, yeah. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're going to kill these guys. But you can see some of that tide turn, and that is what, like, I know people were kind of clowning on the whole like, oh, this work as a family type thing, but what they need, this is how it's going to sink in for
Yeah.
some of those orcs to be able to have that. And obviously the text also says that orcs do have babies, so
Yeah.
they would have families, but it's just now, how does Sauron position that when he faces off against Adar, whether it's next week or if it's later on in the show's run. I can see them shifting a bit because he might be able to say, look at what he's done. He spent all of this energy trying to take me out when I don't even want to take you out.
Mm.
I want to be your leader. I want to take you guys in. You guys are losing your lives for no reason,
Mm-hmm.
and you know,
That would
th-
be
th-
some. It would be a really cool sort of full circle thing too, because you mentioned the way the season opens with all the orcs killing Sauron. If at the end, it literally the last scene is like him walking to Mordor. I mean, again, it might be a little repetitive because that's how last season ended,
yeah.
but him like sort of heading his new orc army that basically all killed him in the first episode of the season. That would be cool full circle. So maybe they will start to pay that off.
Well, and next week in a preview for next week, I don't know if you saw this. I saw it at the end of the episode because I
Mhm.
stuck around this time, but
Yep.
it shows him getting the crown again,
Yep.
and I'm like, what better full circle would be if he kills Adar with the crown, right?
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
I think it's going to be more him wearing it
Mm,
and reclaiming his crown, even though so it was actually Morgoth's crown, is what they said, I
yeah.
believe, in the thing. But then he kind of wore it, I believe, as a lieutenant of Morgoth.
Mm,
I think in the like not the prequel, the prologue, I believe they show when Galadriel's talking about them facing off against Sauron. We do see him in his full armor,
mm,
um, and then it's just him, like we said at the beginning of this season, him gonna be putting it on as like a ceremonial thing when then he gets stabbed. So I don't know, maybe that'll play into it, maybe not, but I just think it's cool that I saw the crown in the promo
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm like, hey, maybe this is gonna happen a little faster than we had thought, because I don't know how much more you could reasonably do Adar versus Sauron. Like I think at some point we got to move on to Sauron being the big bad, and kind of moving on
Mhm.
from any possibility of Adar working with our core
Yeah.
heroes,
Yeah.
which I do think is over now with this episode. So we do have
Yeah, I would say so.
we have a Arondir show up in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that because, like, where do you think he fits into the whole Adar thing? Like, I understand he has a gripe, like, with the orcs because of everything that had played out with Bronwyn and stuff, and her passing. But like, it did it
And even
feel?
before that, remember he
Mhm.
was captured by them,
Yes,
and he
like
lost some
killed the
friends.
tree and stuff. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. So there's some stuff there, but did that feel? I don't want to say forced. That might be the wrong way to put it, but a little bit of a like, I don't know, it felt like they just kind of dropped that whole Arondir like vengeance towards Adar thing in there because they had nothing better to do with him this season, knowing that the Bronwyn actress left.
I mean, it could be. It could be that. I do think that may have been their ultimate goal anyway with him, but just we haven't gotten that much Arondir. I
Yeah.
don't feel like this season. Is he
Yep.
dead? Is he
No.
dead? Dead?
No,
You
he's
don't think so?
not. No.
Okay.
They would have we talked about this on Agents of Fandom too. When somebody dies in one of these shows, they don't give it to you in the way they gave it to you in this episode. They'll give you the minute of the close up on their face as they're like laying there having the final conversation with whoever or whatever or something like that. It was way too quickly just like, oh, he got stabbed, on to the next scene for him to be dead.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we were supposed to take from that yet. So Adar does get the upper hand of Arondir, which then might make this also just kick that can down the road again
That's what I
if
think.
Arondir is alive, and that he will get his revenge on Adar, and not so much Sauron getting revenge on Adar. That's the thing. There's two people that really want revenge on Adar, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, who gets that, right? If
Yeah.
you're writing this stuff, like who,
Mhm.
because Adar is a created character for the show,
Mhm.
so they can do whatever
Yeah.
with him.
Yeah. Which is the cool thing. There's no, I know some people don't like when they go away from the source material or add to it or whatever. I'm personally, a big fan of when projects do that. Like The Walking Dead is a big one. I'm in love with that. And like one of the coolest things about that show is how they would take moments and things from the original comics and like twist them and like, maybe this thing happens to this character now, or like this character's over here doing that. So like I think it would be really cool if it is really cool that they have this character to who they can literally is a ball of clay that they can mold into this story however they want to.
Yeah, Walking Dead did that well sometimes, and sometimes they did not do that well. There's certain characters they did not do that well with. But yeah, I
R.I.P. Glenn. Oh,
I was also referring to another one. I was
that was
referring
from the
to another.
comic, so that was
Yeah,
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 that was a bad example actually. Who were you referring to?
Carl.
Oh yeah, yeah, duh, yeah,
Coral.
Coral. Yeah, no, that was. We won't go down that rabbit hole. I'll get way too fired up.
All right, so we have during this, right? We have them start marching. The elves are marching on the orcs, but before that, they have a little parlay, right, with Adar and the orcs. And what was the parlay first, or was it after they see Galadriel?
After who sees? Oh, after the elves see, like when they pull
Yeah,
the thing off
yeah.
her cart. Immediately after that,
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
that happens. Then they parlay. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So they're marching, right, and then like you're seeing them wheel this thing up to the front,
Mm.
and then they whip out the Galadriel. They're like, "Here
Yeah.
she is.
Yeah.
Slow down."
Really cool visual too in that moment of the
Covered in
cinematography. Like,
darkness and
yes,
light. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
you can pull that up and post edit or whatever. We'll throw that in there. But yeah, awesome shot.
Yeah, great shot. So then they're kind of stuck, right? What would have happened if they were just like, you know what, screw it,
Yeah.
and they just keep going, and like Galadriel's just a casualty. They're like, who
Elrond just
cares?
fires an arrow right into her face. What's
Yeah,
now?
what now, Adar?
Oh.
But no, they have their little rendezvous, and I knew where this was going, right? Especially once Elrond unclips his little brooch. I'm like, all right, here he goes. He's gonna slide it over to her. But the way he does it is by making out with his future mother-in-law.
Hey,
It's pretty crazy.
people are into what they're into. We can't judge anyone in 2024.
That's pretty crazy. I know some people are upset about that. I did see some people complain that he makes out with Galadriel, but
context is king in this situation. Like,
it's literally just to give her the thing that'll let her pick the lock.
Yeah,
that's it.
There will be no. I mean, here I'll say it, and then next week it'll be "I love you, Galadriel." But like, there is no, as far as I'm concerned, there is no romance arc coming up between Elrond and Galadriel. I would be very shocked and pretty disappointed if they went that route, because I think it's lazy. But I don't think they will.
Though. What if they do have a little thing before he ends up falling in love with her daughter?
Nah. I send it back. I send it back.
But yeah, so they have this little, meeting. They say, we're gonna have to team up, or else I'm gonna kill Galadriel, pretty much. And he's like, nah, I'm good. He's Tim Robinson. No, I'm good. And that's when he passes it off to her. She will break out of there, pick the lock, and Adar gets pretty pissed off. She then does escape. She barely gets out of this by getting caught quite a few times, it feels like. But she's able to kind of get out of there, and the next time we see her is when she is running into Arondir, I think. And then she runs into Celebrimbor, gets the rings, and she goes from there. So that's where we currently have the 9 rings for mortal men doomed to die are in Galadriel's possession.
Yep. And they try to Celebrimbor tries to destroy them, but they are he puts them in the fire, and it's just can't do nothing to them. So
probably because of the EU Sauron's blood, right?
Yeah.
So I guess they would have to be tossed into Mordor as well, or
something.
Right?
Yeah.
And we know last time she had given her ring, Nenya, to Elrond to hold on to. He said he didn't bring it with him because that's what the rendezvous was, right? Like, give me the ring now so I can help defeat Sauron, or else we're going to kill Galadriel and we're going to have an actual war. He says he can't do it. But when he gets, I'd say, his ass kicked here, along with Arondir, he does know where he keeps the ring, and Adar does take it and is walking away with Nenya, which will eventually become, that's Gandalf's ring.
Yeah.
So eventually that'll become Gandalf's ring. Mm-hmm. So just keep in mind where that is. That right now is with Adar. Okay.
That's kind of interesting now, because I didn't even make the connection when you said it, but like...
Is Adar Gandalf?
Yeah.
Grand elf? He was an elf at some...
I think, all right, the gears are starting to turn here. I think we got something. But yeah, that is like, it's like the sisterhood of the traveling ring thing we've got going here. Because like, how does that end up? Like, does Sauron get it back from Adar, and then does he give it back to Galadriel, who gives it to Stranger / Gandalf?
I don't think Sauron can touch it. From what we know, is that one was never influenced by Sauron. So,
right,
in my opinion, Adar will have to lose that ring, either willingly or, like we said, Arondir or somebody takes him out, and they get Nenya, and then it eventually gets to Círdan, who then gives it to Gandalf. Like that's the path for that ring.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting now. It's like, okay, that's with Adar. So we know at some point, unless they change it, right? I mean, they can,
Yeah.
that he has to lose that ring. So obviously for people that are not as familiar, they're just going to be like, whoa, Adar has a ring. Like, what's that going to do?
Yeah.
But we can sit here and look at it and say, okay, obviously Adar's not going to keep hold of that. We're going to get it back at some point.
Yada yada.
Yeah, yada yada yada.
You can't just yada yada something like that.
Not that part. We can't just yada yada the rings.
Jerry!
My question is, how do we get the 9 rings to the men? Like, Galadriel's going to have to get caught, and those rings have to get to Sauron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's... I wonder if it's going to be that direct, though. Yeah, I guess it kind of has to be. That's got to be, like, probably one of the main, at least the opening storylines of next season, I'd imagine, because I don't know if they're going to have time to disperse all of that here. We don't even know.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you could do Sauron captures Galadriel as a cliffhanger.
Yeah, we could do that, or we could do. I mean, so we see he in that preview you mentioned. They do, like, when he puts on the helmet and all that stuff. Galadriel's there, so they are going to have a confrontation next week. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it ends with him sort of getting the rings. Like, maybe I'm trying to just do some fantasy booking in my head here. Like, maybe they go at it a little bit, and it seems like Galadriel's got the upper hand, and oh my god, is she gonna kill him? You know, blah blah blah. And he ends up just swiping the rings and, like, noping himself out of there with a spell or something, and maybe heads to Numenor at that point, you know, for next season. And that's kind of where we open up with him next season, dispersing these rings amongst, you know, the Pharazones and the Kemens of the world. Such a great point. Okay. You left you speechless.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to quickly read through this, see what we have here. So again, we're at 1697 in the timeline here. Eregion laid waste. Death of Celebrimbor. We're expecting that next week. The gates of Moria are shut. That's probably happening, right? We see in the previews the Balrog finally appearing.
Yeah. Well, they said it at the end of the episode too, that the gates are shut.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
We'll get to the dwarf side of things shortly here. Now, parts we haven't seen: Elrond retreats with the remnant of the Noldor and founds the refuge of Imlardis. Sauron overruns another spot, and then you have Tar Minister in 1700 sends a great navy from Numenor to Lindon. Sauron is defeated.
From Numenor to Lindon. Okay. Huh.
And then Sauron is defeated, like, not fully at that point, just like he loses a little bit of a battle here, I guess. And then from about this time onward, the Numenorians begin to establish dominions on the coast. I'm expecting that'd be next year. We saw in previews Isildur saying, "I'm going back to Numenor," and he's talking to Estrid and asking her to come with him, because I guess he's like, "I don't care that you have a boyfriend. I'm making my move."
Classic Isildur.
I don't care if I'm supposed to throw this ring in there. I'm keeping it. Yeah, it is classic Isildur, I guess.
Just like good warrior, you know, all that stuff, but also kind of a bit of a bozo. Like, that's just pretty much personifies it right there.
I'll be interested to see how they do the Numenor stuff, because after I just said they begin to establish dominions on the coast, Sauron extends his power eastwards, and then the shadow falls onto Numenor. Tar Atanamir takes the scepter. Rebellion and division of the Numenorians begin. And about this time, the Nazgul and Ringwraiths, slaves of the 9 rings, first appear. So we're going to start getting those probably soon too. And then, especially, like I said there, it's kind of interesting. The preview kind of shows that rebellion and division, as they're starting to say that all faithful, right, are now like persona
non grata.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the way to, but just like kind of on the shit list, so to
No, they
speak.
speak Latin, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's. But no, I am interested to see how that'll all work out because we just saw the sea was always right,
Mm.
and they kind of like the Numenorians kind of took a hit there, right? To the ways of that, and the faithful kind of got the innocent rolling and all that. That's making them double down on no, these people are bad. But I'm like wondering, does that get more people to the faithful's cause then? And that's what creates even more division. Like I could kind of see it going that way.
I think so. That sounds like that's interesting. I feel like that's something that they will change a lot from the books. Like everything you just laid
Mhm.
out there, I'm sure they'll hit the main backbone beats, but I feel like there's a lot there that they're gonna probably twist and turn to better fit this story.
Yeah, I think so too. It'll be like Sauron eventually goes over there posing as somebody else, and he's gonna, you
Yeah.
know, and all of that apparently takes place before Pharazôn even takes power
Oh,
in the book
really?
timeline. In the book timeline, yeah,
Ooh. Yeah, so they're definitely gonna mess some stuff around there because Farazan's already in power. So like, or who knows
right.
now? With the
They've kind
last.
of truncated, like because there's been numerous rulers that are in the Second Age that they skipped over just to have one consistent one with Tar Miriel and um, our Farazon. So that's how they've kind of been going with that.
Mhm. Well, it'll
Yeah.
just
Okay.
they'll change it and it'll give people just more fodder to complain online and be annoying. So who knows? We'll enjoy it.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about. Let's finish up the Elven stuff. We have Gilgalad show up in armor. That was cool
Mm,
seeing Gilgalad in full armor.
mm.
He's one I don't think I would recognize outside of the show. Right now, he's got short hair and a beard.
Yeah, yeah.
I would be like, I don't know who you are, dude. But
And he speaks like he doesn't have an English accent, which threw me way off. Like
oh, does he
he
not?
talks just like me and you in real life. Yeah.
Oh, he's American. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, dude, you are a great actor because I would have never in a million years thought he wasn't from the UK.
Yeah. So we have um Elrond was very confident they were going to win this, right? Because he sent a guy to go out and meet the dwarves because he already met with Durin earlier in the episode. Durin said he will help, and Durin's supposed to come at daylight with the rest of the dwarves. By the way, that's a nice little callback to the Helm's Deep stuff. This really felt like a Helm's Deep episode.
Mm-hmm.
But when Gandalf's like, "Look to me on the fifth day,"
Yeah.
sunlight when the sunlight rises, and there you go.
And he rolls up with
And
the army from Rohan. Are you talking about?
yeah,
Yeah.
the Rohirrim,
Yeah.
uh, the War of the
Mm.
Rohirrim.
Coming
Actually,
soon.
no, that's not it, but it's coming soon. Takes place like 800 years before that. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we had kind of parallels with that, with Elrond thinking, all right, we're going to get our butts saved here. And they don't. They don't. It also kind of felt very Helm's Deep because of them sending out Danrod to go pull
Mm-hmm.
the wall, because you know
Yeah.
how you had like the berserkers with
Yep.
the dynamite and all
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yep.
By the way, when I played that game, we talked about it in our first episode. The Two Towers game, the Helm's Deep level, at a certain point of the battle, they'd start sending out the berserkers and with the strap dynamite, and you'd have to try to take them out before they get to the wall.
Oh.
And if you miss one, it blows up that wall, and you have to
Oh.
start that level over. Man,
Even
it
one?
was
Oh,
tough.
what a pain.
Well, maybe it was like a health bar. I don't remember, but it
Oh, okay.
felt like just like one, and you're dead.
Yeah. 10-year-old Jordan was pissed trying to
I
beat
was.
that kid.
Yeah, I got really good at it though. I got really good at it.
Nice. I know who to call when the orcs invade my house here.
Yeah. Oh, let's not talk. I'm not that good at it. Never mind. I'm not that good. But then we kind of see the dwarf side of things. So look, fairness to Durin, he was ready to have his crew roll up and go to war. But things changed. Why don't you dive into it, Ron? What happens in Moria that makes Durin say, I can't go? Mom
Uh,
said no, I'm grounded.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, they were ready to go and spring to action and help the elves in this fight. And then, as Durin and all them are leaving, Durin is stopped by this sort of bloodied dwarf who's like, "Hey, man, your dad is like kind of taking an axe to all of us right now, and he's still digging down there. So, like, you might not, you maybe shouldn't leave, or else there's going to be nothing to come home to." So it was kind of this really tough moral dilemma that Duran found himself in, and I think ultimately he did make the right choice, like for himself. I mean, we know that Khazad-dûm is Khazad-dûmed. You know, we know the Balrog is coming. I am so glad I got to throw that out there, by the way. But like we know that it's doomed, so it's probably the effort on Duran's part is going to be for naught. But in that situation, I can't say I blame him for making the choice that he made.
Yeah, it's how about that chant too? Khazad
Yeah.
Doom, right?
So there was a moment there. I want to know if you felt this too. So he's given the speech, and it's kind of a wide shot of everybody, and then it's overlaid with that shot of King Durin like holding up his axe and everything, and then it cuts back to young Durin giving his speech, and it's like a shoulders up shot, and
You thought he was going to Kemen him?
I
Just
literally thought, yes, I thought that he was just like, he was going to be like, for Khazad and just get axed right in the back. And I'm so glad they didn't, because he's like one of my three favorite characters in the show. But like, I was like on pins and needles there. I was like, oh my God, are they going to do it?
No, I didn't think that, but I did think maybe something else was going to happen,
Mm.
like that would put like the you know put that on hold.
Hmm.
I didn't think it was gonna be him like stabbing him, but I thought maybe something else other than that guy running out there, like maybe the king himself would come out and do something.
Or
Just
maybe
be
just
like,
the Balrog just breaks free.
or the Balrog, yeah, like especially when they had that full shot of them all being like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I thought maybe the Balrog would just be like,
Oh, it would have been perfect time. That would have been sick, dude.
yeah. So something I find interesting, right? So like, obviously they've messed around with the timeline a bit because, like I said, Numenor creating dominions on the coasts. That's already kind of happened because of the place that Theo is currently residing, which was Pelargir,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
That becomes a chief haven for the faithful, for the
Okay.
Numenorians. So I do think what you'll see is next year, where even in the finale, some of them will leave Numenor and end up going to Pelargir to um, escape religious persecution, right?
So it wouldn't surprise me then if that's where Elendil ends up being, and where he reunites with Isildur, because he's
Yeah,
they're all pretty close. Isildur and Estrid are still like in that general kind of
they're in
area
that.
close to there.
Yeah, they're in that area.
Yeah.
Um, what I would think more likely is going to happen is Isildur goes back home and finds out what's going on, and then
Two ships passing in the night, sort of
no, no,
thing.
no, and then Elendil and him will like escape together
Gotcha.
next season. I think they'll still have Numenor for another season or so.
That would have been so
Um,
funny. I'm going to
yeah,
save my dad. I'm going to save my son.
it's that meme. What's that meme where like the two people are passing each other and they're
In
both
the
looking
cars.
like that?
100%.
It's that on ships, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, this is I feel so bad for Elrond here because, and I feel bad for Durin because I feel like Elrond's gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, something's going on here. I mean that guy, I forget his name, who was running out to tell them, um, was very injured from King Durin, right? And
Yeah.
it's not looking good. And he's, I think in previews, I think Durin says to the king, like, take it off or I'm taking your whole hand.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's so badass, too. But we're going to see these two finally come to a head. And I do think, obviously our Durin will win. But it might be too late with the Balrog.
So what's your stance on what happens to Durin's ring? I know we talked about it a little bit last week, but having an extra episode's worth of material to chew on now, do you think he takes it? Do you think he do you think other Durin dies with it? Although no, we know he's not going to. So that ring's still going to be around. But just what do you think? What do you think the path is for it?
I don't know if they'll do like Ardurin falling to the ring. I
I
think
don't
if
think so either.
anything, he might just like toss it somewhere in the mine or try
Mhm.
to find some way to destroy it, but not be able to, obviously, and just kind of lock it away somewhere because it's just. I think that ring will get lost, but I don't know. I mean,
I
there's
don't know.
7 of those.
I don't know how much people would enjoy it, but I wouldn't totally hate if they had Disa wear it. If it was like, she is just so pure of heart or something like that, that she's able to
Hmm.
not be corrupted by the ring or something like that. I think that would be even kind of cool. While we're just throwing stuff at the wall here, sort of.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's tough to think like what can happen with this, right? Because could this be the beginning of Durin's fall? And like even like Elrond then finds out that, you know, I don't know, that they play some sort of divide between those two because he didn't show up, but also now Durin has the ring and it's
Yeah.
and it's a little bit of that. And we start seeing that friendship between the elves and dwarves start to fade, even though we still need them to be friends for the last alliance of men.
Yeah.
Right. So
Well, do we need them to be
maybe
friends or
not.
do we need them to come together? Because like
True, true.
if they spend the next couple seasons kind of like building this divide between them, and then they have to ultimately come back together in the last season, that could be a cool way to go.
True. True. It could be a slow burn with that, right?
Mhm.
Like a little detour
Yeah.
to that. Because I would like to think Elrond's just going to be like, tell me your side of things, so I know that you didn't just abandon me here. But
Yeah.
I think that that's too easy. They're probably going to play them off of each other a little bit,
Mm.
especially because that is the one relationship we've had since season one. Um, and we've already seen them kind of at odds with each other in season one at the beginning, but then they've gotten to a better spot. So kind of seeing some regression with that would hurt us.
Mhm.
We'd be like, oh, why can't they just be friends again? And it will kind of build some more conflict, which we don't have too much of in this show, right? Like we don't have a lot of conflict outside of orcs versus whatever.
And
We do
Sauron
now
versus
have
everybody.
we have the Numenorians versus the faithful, like the
Mhm.
faithful versus the non-faithful. We have that, which is not Sauron related, but most of the other conflict is Sauron related.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's a good one. That's a good idea.
Yes. What
And
else?
next week looks like it's going to have quite a bit in it. I wouldn't be shocked if it's, of course, over an hour. This was
Oh
70
yeah.
some minutes. I'm thinking we're going to have an hour and a half, hour
Mhm.
20.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to get, Stranger. We're probably getting everybody. I would think because it showed previews of Numenor. It showed previews of every spot. I think so.
Mhm.
We should have every character next week, which will be great.
Yeah. You got to send us off with everybody. As we head into what's inevitably probably another 2+ year wait between seasons, because that's just how we operate now. So they've got to give us some kind of definitive, like, where are they heading into the next season sort of thing next week. So yeah, I think it'll be a super long episode, and I think everybody will get a decent amount of shine. Yeah.
I can't wait, and we'll be here next week talking all about the finale. And like you said, then we have another 2-year wait.
Let's hope not, man. Let's hope they can figure out some kind of way to get it together, even if it's like a year and a half. Like if it comes out, I was going to say comes out at the end of next year, but we're practically at the end of this year already. But like,
No, yeah, they're not filming until next year. It's not going to be out
oh
until 2024,
god,
2026.
god damn it! Oh, what the hell, man?
Welcome to TV nowadays, Ron.
I don't get it, dude. I don't get it. We got cartoons taking 2 years to produce 10 episode seasons. I don't get it. It's not good for us podcasters either, too, because we got nothing to fucking talk about. So
It's really tough. I mean, look, there's like one consistent show right now, and it's Only Murders in the Building. Comes out like every August.
Hmm.
They get it right. They do 10 episodes instead of 8. It's like, woo, I get a little bit
Jeez.
more.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do it every year. But there's a lot of shows now, like you said, even cartoons that take 2 or 3 years. There's God, some shows take even longer at this rate. And it is frustrating because, as I've pointed out before, the first like 6 seasons of Game of Thrones were yearly.
Mhm.
If you can do Game of Thrones yearly, except for like season 7 and 8.
Yeah. Which is really when all this started, and it almost feels like Game of Thrones is the show that kicked all this bullshit off with the, and
Yeah, and
I
even then
love
they
Game
were
of
just
Thrones,
like,
but
yeah, but it wasn't like they were like, we're going to purposely take long. It was like, we're going to, we have to take a little longer because it's going to take longer to film these. And they were
Mhm.
making like hour and a, I will give Lord of the Rings this, right? This show puts out hour plus episodes
Yes.
every week.
Mhm.
When it takes 2 years and then the show rolls up with 27 minutes,
Yeah.
30-minute episodes
8 episodes. Yeah.
for 6 to 8 episodes, it's like, what took you that long?
Yeah.
I know this is not Star Wars related, but we just saw that maybe the budget for The Acolyte was way higher than what it was.
Higher than this show, which is
Yeah.
mind-boggling to me.
How? Like, how are what is going on? Like, I don't know. I'm watching Agatha right now, and I'm thinking that budget's probably not that high because they were smart to do that. Like
Mhm.
each trial so far, like that first trial in Agatha is like,
It's like
let's
in a
get them on the
house.
set of Sex in the City
Yeah, it's in a
and
house.
just
Yeah.
yeah, and they have them in normal costumes.
Mhm.
There's got to be a way to make stuff cheaper, and I don't mean like cheap,
Yeah.
but we've kind of lost the normal TV shows that I don't know, Lost put out 20 some episodes a season. They filmed in Hawaii,
Mhm.
had practical sets,
Yeah.
6 straight years. Uh,
Walking
How are we
Dead,
not
same
doing that?
thing.
How are we not doing that?
Not to go back to Walking Dead, but same thing. 16
Yeah,
45-minute episodes.
16. Yeah,
16 hour, quote unquote. They're
that's
all 45
lost
minutes.
now.
Yeah, it's like what happened? I don't get it. And these aren't small shows that we're talking about. Like, I don't know. And we kind of went back and forth in private on the debate of like, well, is it actually helping the cast and crew like be able to like space things out a little more
It's
and
not
like,
helping the crew. It's maybe
but
helping the cast take other projects.
but that's, yeah.
Um, but the crew have to jump from show to show now to even keep job. Like when you had a network job and you had 20 some episodes, you knew you had a job from September to May,
Mhm,
right? And you were working then the whole time. And then they would probably jump onto a summer show that
mhm.
they would start on. Now these people have to work for 8 episodes and then jump
Yeah.
onto another
See
show.
you in 2.5 years if you're even still in the industry. It's like,
Right. Right.
okay. Yeah.
So like, oh, I did Rings of Power, then I had to jump over here and do Acolyte, then I had to jump over here and do this, because
Yeah.
they have to wherever they're filming at is, this is now in the UK,
Mhm.
and a lot of those, I think Acolyte was filmed in the UK. A lot of those shows kind of film in the UK or Georgia or California. Those are like your 3
Yeah.
hotbeds of filming.
Mhm.
Just frustrating. I am glad this show has been putting out really good quality hours plus episodes. They don't feel like they drag.
Not at all.
They're paced well. Like I'm
It's
really excited.
it is that is one that's a very good point that you make too, because there have been certain episodes of other shows. I guess I'll just say Acolyte because it's the most recent, which we liked as a show overall. We didn't think it was horrible or anything like that. We're not the anyone who likes it is shit. Like we're not saying that at all. But like there was episodes of that show where it was like these episodes were half the time of Rings of Power episodes. Where like I'd catch myself looking at the watch a little bit and being like, it's kind of having a tough time to keep my attention here. But Rings of Power, it's one that I haven't found myself looking at my phone, like checking to see or like going to the time bar and seeing how much I have left. I haven't done that once with this show, which is a testament to them.
Yeah. No, I feel like they've really timed all of that stuff really well.
So let's just hope they can get some kind of a less annoying production schedule. I guess that's what we could hope for going forward.
And maybe now that they moved to the UK, things can move faster than
Mhm.
like they had to move everything from all in New Zealand to the UK. That
Mhm.
probably took a little bit longer as well. But yeah, no, I who knows? I
A bleak note to end off on.
Yeah. I mean, and the reason we point this out too is because we'll be talking about a lot of these shows. House of the Dragon, that show takes 2 years when
Yeah.
Game of Thrones was the same production.
Mhm.
Again, and we don't understand why that's always. And they have less episodes
I was
now
just
than
gonna
Game
say
of
with less
Thrones, so
episodes. Yeah.
we don't get it. But we'll be here talking about it when they inevitably air.
Mhm.
We'll be sitting here in our retirement homes, live streaming, talking
Season
about the
4
shows.
of House of the Dragon. I can't wait.
Will they finally go to war now? We'll discuss.
Oh God.
All right, at fantasyfolkpod on all of our social medias. You can also email us, fantasyfolkpod@gmail.com. We'll be here next week discussing the finale. And then we will have, I think, a fun episode after that.
Mm.
And then kind of just talking some of the Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon stuff that you got a little preview of here on this episode. And then we'll start planning out what else we're doing on here. But just strap in. We have stuff that are coming down the pipe here.
Yes.
Thank you all for watching and listening. We will catch you next time.